Before we begin today's episode, I want to acknowledge something different about this moment. This isn't just another case. This is a special episode of the Passport to Crime podcast. My name is Oakley, and today is one that marks the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 London bombings. On July 7th, 2005, 4 coordinated suicide attacks targeted London's transport system during the morning rush hour, taking 52 lives and injuring over 700 others. It was a day that reshaped Britain, and its impact is still felt 2 decades later. What you're about to hear contains graphic descriptions of terrorist violence, severe injuries, eyewitness accounts, and emotionally distressing details. We will be sharing survivor stories and reflecting on the legacy of a national tragedy, with the respect and care it deserves. Please be advised, this episode includes content that may be triggering for some listeners. If you're sensitive to discussions of death, trauma, or terrorism, please take caution. This is not an easy listen, but it's one we believe is important. Backpacks and blame, security, suspicion, surveillance. In the days that followed, a new kind of fear surfaced, not from terrorists, but from within the communities. British Muslims were wrongly blamed or harassed. Mosques reported vandalism. Muslim passengers were profiled or avoided. Civil liberty debates flared. Increased CCTV coverage. Bag searches, anti-radicalisation programmes like Prevent, MI5 and Scotland Yard conducted massive intelligence sweeps to ensure no further attacks. Security became the new norm, but so did suspicion. And for some of us, that was another kind of bomb. That was from a Londoner of Pakistani descent. Now let's take a look at the investigation. Threads of hate and home videos. What unfolded in the months following would piece together a meticulous plan born in local bedrooms, radicalised mosques and international training camps. The bombers had filmed martyrdom tapes. One spoke of revenge for Iraq. Another praised Osama bin Laden. Authorities found explosive residue in a Leeds bathtub, used to mix the volatile Tat P. A car at Luton Station, registered to one of the bombers, contained bomb-making manuals and residue. They weren't trained assassins, they were young men with ordinary lives who chose to end others. The narrative stung, homegrown terror. Britain's own citizens, radicalised in plain sight. Now let's look at vigils and unity. London does not fall. 3 nights after the bombings, candles lit everywhere, and every park bench. Flowers lined King's Cross. A woman wept holding the photo of her fiancé. A child clutched a card that read, "For the people on the train, I hope your angels found you." Faith leaders spoke together on steps of cathedrals and mosques. Queen Elizabeth II visited victims at Royal London Hospital, offering quiet embraces and steady eyes. Londoners returned to work the following Monday, unafraid, unbowed. When we boarded that train again, it wasn't defiance, it was remembrance. We carried their names to work. Commuter on the Piccadilly line. Survivor profile. Martinez journey. Martine Bright boarded the Piccadilly line train that morning, running a few minutes late. That timing would change everything. She was just feet away from Mohammed Sadiq Khan when the bomb went off. Both her legs were amputated above the knee. She was one of the last survivors pulled from the wreckage. Her recovery was agonising. 10 months in hospital, more than 20 surgeries, phantom pain and emotional trauma. I couldn't walk for a year, but I decided if I got a second chance, I wasn't going to waste it. Martine would go on to become a Paralympian for Team GB in sitting volleyball and the 2012 London Games, a symbol of resilience. Now let's take a look at the other targets. Muslim victims, Muslim heroes. In the rush to understand the bombers' motives, the public often missed a heartbreaking truth. Several Muslim passengers were among the victims and heroes. Shahara Islam, aged 20, died in the Aldergate blast. She was British, Bangladeshi, a Muslim, and a Londoner. Muslim medics, chaplains, and volunteers worked tirelessly in rescue efforts. Imams across the UK condemned the attacks unequivocally. In mosques, verses about peace and justice echoed louder than ever before. "They killed my sister," said Sahara's brother. "But we won't let them kill our faith." From London to Lahore, Washington to Warsaw, the global shockwave. News of 7/7 hit the world like thunder after lightning. President George W. Bush called it an attack on the civilized world. Cities tightened their transit systems, from Madrid to New York, from Rome to Sydney. Alerts were raised, fear rippled globally. In the Middle East, newspapers printed photos of victims, alongside Quranic prayers. "We were not just watching Britain in mourning," said a Lebanese journalist. "We were watching our collective heartbreak." The Quiet Lives, 52 names and 52 echoes. Each victim had a story. Some were headed to work, some were visiting London for the first time, some never knew what hit them. Carrie Taylor, 24, was an art historian, just returning from a trip abroad. Jonathan Downey, 34, texted his wife, train delayed, at 8:49. He was gone a minute later. And then there's Miriam Hyman, 32, had left a voicemail for her father saying she was okay after the underground was closed, then boarded the number 30 bus. She was kind, curious, and the kind of daughter that made you proud just to say her name, Miriam's father recited in a BBC interview. Reading every name at the July 7th memorial takes 4 minutes and 39 seconds, but each one deserves far more. Now let's take a look at the legacy of the investigation. New eyes, new fears. From ashes came a new national security structure, one built not just on intel and wiretaps, but on understanding people before they disappeared into extremism. The MI5 expanded domestic surveillance and undercover units. The PREVENT strategy was formalised. A controversial programme aimed at identifying radicalisation in schools, prisons, and communities. Public transport saw major changes. CCTV doubled, drills increased, and British Transport Police presence became routine. Terrorism didn't end on 7/7, but our blindness to it did. MI5 analyst interviewed in 2010. What changed? The day the UK grew up. 7/7 didn't end innocence. It reminded Britain that it never had it to begin with. That no country is exempt. That fear has a postcode. And sometimes it rides the same train as you do. Patriotism surged. But not the flag-waving kind. It was in commuters holding each other's hands in silence the next morning. It was in signs, reading, "We are not afraid," in graffiti that said London United. In the bus driver who resumed his route days later, because the city keeps moving. Terror is meant to stop the heartbeat of a city. One columnist wrote, but London's pulse came back stronger than ever before. The memorials, etched into stone, etched into us. In Hyde Park, 52 steel pillars stand, one for each life taken. Arranged in 4 clusters, they mark the location of the 4 blasts. Frozen in geography and grief, families helped shape the design, requesting a space that was both solemn and alive. The pillars catch light differently with every sunrise. Visitors often leave flowers, handwritten notes or ticket stubs. Annual commemorations are held in silence at 8:50 a.m, honouring the precise moment the first bomb detonated. It's not just a memorial, it's a wound made visible, but also a promise that we won't forget. Sister of a victim. Children left behind growing up with ghosts. Some children lost parents they barely remember. Others were still unborn, arriving months after their fathers or mothers perished in the blasts. Emily Jones, now 19, was raised by her grandparents after her mother died on the number 30 bus. She's only known her mother through home videos, photo albums, and a locket that never leaves her neck. In an interview, she said, "Victim support groups host annual gatherings for surviving children, ensuring they're never alone." And then, of course, there was the trial that never was. No one was left to prosecute. Unlike other terror attacks, there were no courtroom spectacles, no defendant docked behind glass. The 4 bombers died with their victims. That absence left families with unanswered questions and a jagged sense of justice. The 2009 inquest, led by Lady Justice Hallett, offered closure for some, frustration for others. MI5 faced sharp criticism over missed intelligence opportunities, but was ultimately cleared of negligence. Justice doesn't always wear robes or gavels. Sometimes it's just knowing the truth, but even that felt incomplete. And that was the testimony, a brother of a victim. Now let's take a look at the media legacy. Reporting the unthinkable. The 7/7 bombings marked a turning point in the evolution of news, the moment when mobile footage, citizen reporting, and digital witness became mainstream. Grainy videos from mobile phones inside the tube offered raw, unfiltered documentation. Survivors blogged their experiences from hospital beds. Some became authors, others turned to film. Documentaries like 7/7, One Day in London, and first-hand memoirs turned personal, trauma into national testimony. When we told our stories, we reclaimed control. We refused to be remembered only as victims. This was a survivor turned filmmaker. Let's take a look at policy and prevention, the birth of a counter-terrorism era. In the wake of 7/7, the UK reshaped its counter-terrorism doctrine. The government pushed through the Terrorism Act 2006, expanding police powers and detention allowances. The Prevent strategy rolled out nationally, placing the duty of spotting early signs of radicalisation on schools, doctors, and social workers. Critics warned of overreach and racial profiling. Proponents insisted it saved lives. You can't arrest ideology. You have to understand it first. Former counter-terrorism officer, interviewed in 2015, made this statement. Meanwhile, community outreach programs began placing former extremists in classrooms and town halls, telling their cautionary tales in person. A decade on, 10 years of echoes. In 2015, London paused once more. Survivors, politicians, and first responders gathered at St. Paul's Cathedral to mark the 10th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings. Prince William and Harry laid wreaths as silence fell again at 8:50 a.m. Martine Wright lit the memorial flame. Children of the victims read their parents' names. Some had rehearsed for weeks, others spoke through tears. The ceremony wasn't just about remembering. It was about marking how life had evolved in the shadows of loss. It didn't get easier. We just get better at living through it, one survivor whispered, hands trembling over her bouquet. Then there's the art aftershock. From ashes, expression. In the years following 7/7, grief sought new canvases. Survivors, artists, and citizens poured their pain, confusion, and defiance into paint, performance, and poetry. A sculpture created installations using twisted metal salvaged from Edgware Road, forming abstract bodies mid-scream. Singer-songwriter Polly Scattergood penned "Please Don't Touch" as a response to survivor trauma, her lyrics trembling with vulnerability. Galleries hosted exhibitions titled "Memory in Motion" and "Fragments of July," offering space for catharists beyond headlines. "We couldn't scream anymore, so we painted. We danced, we wrote," said one artist, who lost a friend on the Circle Line. Creativity became rebellion, mourning, a movement. Now let's take a look at faith in the rubble. But God doesn't ride the tube. Many survivors turned to faith, others turned away from it. Some found God in the smoke, others lost him there. Church attendance spiked for a time after 7/7 as people sought meaning beyond the chaos. At London Central Mosque, interfaith prayers were held, imams and priests side by side. But for others, belief was swallowed by the silence of loss. I prayed for my sister's safety. I never heard a reply. That silence still echoes. said one man, who left his church the next month. Religious institutions wrestle publicly with extremism. Faith both fractured and healed.